Hey, it's Neil Jepson. Last time we chatted, I wanted to share with you a couple ideas about how to organize the conversation in order to make the conversation more rich. Remember, you're always trying to move to the organic, spontaneous conversation. When I suggested to organize the conversation, that wasn't the end. That will just help more people to participate so that it becomes more organic and real. Here we are in Habakkuk. Let's say Habakkuk, maybe, is that how you say it? Maybe we found this verse. This is chapter 1, verse 2, and it says, "How long shall I cry, and thou wilt not hear? Yea, cry even out unto of violence, and thou wilt not save." Let's imagine, for example, that you have identified a principle with your class, and you've organized the conversation. Jack, will you please identify what you find in verse 2? And he maybe says, okay, well, sometimes the Lord doesn't answer questions or doesn't answer prayers according to the desires that we want them to. Okay, great, excellent. Okay, then at this point, once he's found that, you can just say, Jack, something like this. Just ask one more question. Jack, what do you think about that? Or, Jack, tell me more about how that makes you feel. And then when Jack responds, just simply respond with, hey, Jack, keep talking. Give me one more response to what you mean. And have him continue to share and continue to talk. Here's another example of how you could do that. Here, this is in a couple weeks, I think next week, you'll do Zechariah. This is chapter 7. I love these verses and the imagery it shows. You know, perhaps you've asked Lucy, hey, Lucy, I want you to read verse 11. And then afterwards, Lucy, I want you to just tell me what you see in your mind as these verses are read. And she reads, "But they refused to hearken, and pulled away the shoulder, and stopped their ears, that they should not hear. Yea, they made their hearts as an adamant stone." Lucy, what did you see as I read those verses? And she perhaps describes exactly what she saw in her mind. And then you can just ask one more spontaneous question. And it can even be simple like this. Lucy, keep talking. What do you mean, pulled away the shoulders? What does that look like? And what does that look like in the life of a young Latter-day Saint like you when it comes to the Lord and your relationship? What I'm saying, teachers, is just to ask one more question. Here's another example. This is in Zechariah 10. I love these verses. I just think they're so cool. Right here in verse 8, it says, "In the last days, I will hiss for them and gather them." And I wondered what that hiss meant and have done a little bit of work on that and discovered that it means whisper. He whispers after us in the last days and will gather them. And you could ask Lucy, after she's identified in verse 8 that hiss means whisper, and that's how Father in Heaven is calling after her, you could just say, can you tell me a time when Father in Heaven has hissed after you? And when she doesn't respond, you will have to organize the conversation. You'll have to say, okay, Jack, I'd like you to think of a time when you've been hissed after. Lucy, you too, tell me a time when you've been hissed after, or even a time when your parents perhaps have tried to whisper and call for you. And then they respond a little bit, but then you could say, hey, tell me a little bit more. Please respond and tell me a little bit more about moments when Father in Heaven has hissed after you. Remember, this is questions that are spontaneous that you perhaps don't have planned. My invitation to you is ask one more question. Just ask one more question. And most of those one more inspired, spontaneous questions are not questions you've planned, but they will make a big difference. Thanks, brothers and sisters. We'll see you next time.